does welcome everyone. So, welcome to Alpha Phi Sigma's conference. We'll get started. Executive Council, my name is Adriana Jansen, and I'm the Associate Director of Alpha Phi Sigma. Dr. Andrew Giacomasi from Boise State University. Professor Ivy Yarko-Brown from Missouri State University. Dr. Lorna Grant from North Carolina Central University. And Dr. Tamara Wilkins from Minnesota State University, Mankato. Now I would like to present to you your executive student officers. The President, Sharnika Williams from Miami-Dade College. Our Student Vice President, Afia David of the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. Our Secretary, Surishan Famagoksa from Miami-Dade College. And our Treasurer, Emilia Guerrero from Miami-Dade College. Now I'd like to present your executive advisors. Not present today is Dr. Kimberly Masnick from Indian River State College. Then we have Dr. Veronica Herrera from California State University, Oregon. Dr. Janice Weathers Titus from the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. We got a little friendly competition going here, huh? And Dr. Nancy Williams from Miami-Dade College. And now for our esteemed guests. We have our Golden Alumni and President of the National Regional Alumni Circle, who is also representing veterans in Alpha Phi Sigma at this conference, Ms. Tasha Butler. Tasha is a graduate of UMES. And of course, we have the lady that kind of made all this happen, and we're very, very grateful. We have the president of ACJS, Dr. Stephanie Mizrah. Please come up. Give her a big round of applause. And not last, nor least, her wonderful keynote speakers, Dr. Danielle Thomas and Jasmine Mayo. And they're from the Maryland Governor's Office on Crime Prevention and Policy. Thank you everyone for joining us. All right, now I'd like everyone to please stand for the presentation of colors by Alpha Phi Sigma police and military members, Lieutenant John McLaughlin and Army veteran William McLaughlin. and then remain standing for our national anthem, which will be sung a cappella by was it my voice? Robinson from University of Maryland Eastern Shore.
Than last year, but here we go. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, streaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does the star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
All right, I would like to please ask you to all be seated. Thank you very much.
Is the mic working?
Now, I would like please to have the honor guard stand post by the podium. And I would like to present to you once again Ms. Tasha Butler, our Golden Alumni and President of the National Capital Region Alumni Circle. Tasha will be presenting the American 250th Proclamation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to give a brief shout out to Bill Ney. Some of you have had the opportunity to meet him. Those of you who have not, he's a joy and a pleasure. This is the first conference I want to say in 20 plus years that he's had to miss. Unfortunately, his wife's health has been declining, so he's had to cancel all of his travel. He does live on the West Coast in California, but he does send his greetings. He was very sad that he could not make it, but he has been gracious enough to send a donation. He did provide 250 anniversary pins for everyone. I will try to make my way around the room. My parents, they're over there, Mom and Dad. You can call them that. But we will definitely make our way around. Now, Bill Ney, he was a proud member of the U.S. Marine Corps. He's also a member of the National Society of the Sons of the American Revolution. So again, since he was not here, and we have had a very good relationship with the Sons of the American Revolution, they decided that they wanted to present us with a proclamation. Obviously, this is in celebration of our 84th anniversary for Alpha Phi Sigma, but also, as we know, July 4th will be coming up, so there's a lot of celebration for the 250th anniversary, the Declaration of Independence. Whereas Alpha Phi Sigma National Criminal Justice Honor Society was formed in 1942 and is celebrating its 84th anniversary in 2026 with the mission to promote analytical thinking, rigorous scholarship, and lifelong learning, to keep abreast of the advances in scientific research, to elevate the ethics standards of the criminal justice professions, and to sustain in the public mind the benefit and necessity of education and professional training. And whereas the goals of the Alpha Phi Sigma are to honor and promote academic excellence, service, leadership, and unity, and the Sons of the American Revolution seeks to foster cooperative arrangements with organizations such as Alpha Phi Sigma in pursuit of our common goals to honor, respect, and support veterans, and to inspire our communities to a more profound reverence for the principles of the government founded by our forefathers. And whereas one of the patriotic, historical, and educational purposes of the Sons of the American Revolution is to perpetuate the memory of those individuals who, by their services or sacrifices during the war of the American Revolution, achieved the independence of the American people. And Alpha Phi Sigma has honored the memory of Patriots Samuel and Joseph Ney through the Ney-Lataki Military Veteran Scholarship. Whereas the Sons of the American Revolution will commemorate the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution between December 16, 2023 and November 25, 2033, thereby honoring all of those individuals, including the United States first veterans who struggled and sacrificed to turn the Declaration of Independence ideals into reality. And now, therefore, on behalf of the President of the Sons of the American Revolution, Daniel Van Valkenburg, for the Redwood Empire Chapter in California Society of the National Society of the Sons of the American Revolution, do hereby encourage all to celebrate with Alpha Phi Sigma the lifelong learning and the benefits of education and professional training, with a focus on we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. In witness whereof, in Petaluma, California, I have unto set my hand this 20th day of February in the year 2026. Again, on behalf of Bill Ney, his wife Karen Ney, and the Sons of the American Revolution, we thank you all for joining us with our goals for Alpha Phi Sigma. And I do want to thank all of those who have served in the military. Thank you so much for your service. Thank you.
Thank you, Tasha. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Honor Guard members. Now I'd like to bring in Dr. Tamara Wilkins for invocation.
Good morning. I recognize that we all come from different faiths and beliefs hear mine, please. Dear Father, we come together as a group of individuals who want to do better. We're out to help, Lord, and we ask that you give us the ability to do just that. We recognize times of trouble and struggles, and we want to rise above and do what we can to aid anyone who's suffering. We ask that you forgive us of our many sins, Lord, and help us come together as a unique family that we are. Take the strangers that are among us and make them all one. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wilkins. And now I would like to present to you our Executive Student Officer President, Ms. Sharnika Williams.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm your current 2026 President, Sharnika Williams. Along with our Student Executive Board and also our Executive Board, we would like to formally welcome you to the 2026 Alpha Phi Sigma National Criminal Justice Conference here in Philadelphia. I am now officially opening this conference.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the 2026 Alpha Phi Sigma Conference. Who's ready to go? You ready? All right. Excellent. Love the energy. 3 quick things for me. Number 1, hi, Dr. Sheridan from Florida, our international executive director, basking in the Florida sunshine while we're freezing in Philadelphia. It's not too bad. We will see you next year in Orlando for our 85th anniversary celebration of Alpha Phi Sigma. Number 2, Malachi Robinson. Give one more round of applause. You nailed, our national anthem is just a tough song. It's a beautiful song, and you nailed it. And you know you nailed it when one of this year's Quiz Bowl questions has to do with you. So that's just a little hint for the rest of you as well. So good job. And it is my distinct honor now to introduce the ACJS president. This is the first time actually for me where the ACJS president is actually a friend of mine, and it is such an honor to be able to introduce her. It's Dr. Stephanie Mizrahi. I've known Dr. Mizrahi for a very long time, and it's hard to even put into words Dr. Mizrahi's dedication to the field of criminal justice and her unwavering support of the Academy of Criminal Justice Sciences through her service over the years on numerous committees and its regional affiliates, and in particular her service in our region in the West as president of the Western Association of Criminal Justice, conference coordinator for the same organization and Region 5 trustee. Dr. Mizrahi, get this, received her law degree from George School of Law in 1994 and served as a prosecuting attorney in Washington and Oregon prior to receiving her master's in criminal justice from Washington State University, go Cougs, in 2001, and her PhD in criminal justice from Washington State University in 2014. Dr. Mizrahi's dissertation focused on terrorism policy in relation to chemical and biological terrorism. And from 1986 until 1991, Dr. Mizrahi served in the Central Intelligence Agency. Is that still classified, or is that okay? Okay, we're good. She spent the majority of her time as an analyst in the Office of European Analysis with the year's rotation in the Counterterrorism Center, the CTC. She Criminal Justice at California State University, Sacramento, and her teaching and research interests, of course, center around law, terrorism, homeland security, and emergency management policy, and curriculum development and homeland security and emergency management. She has also served as the conference coordinator on several committees with California State University Council on Emergency Management and Homeland Security. Here to say a few words and a greeting from ACJS, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the ACJS President, Dr. Stephanie Mizrah.
Part of being 4'11" and a half is to disappear behind podiums. Well, thank you to Andy for that incredible introduction. I didn't expect that, but yes, we've been friends for years, and I consider him a mentor and a wonderful supporter that has encouraged me. All of WACJ has encouraged me to reach for these heights. My presidential address tonight is going to be a lot about optimism, even in a world that seems not to encourage it right now. And I'm looking over at a group, and it's so closely related to that because I'm looking at students that are passionate about criminal justice, or you wouldn't be here, who are passionate about scholarship and networking and collaboration and making the criminal justice system in whatever capacity you join better. A system that's often flawed, often frustrating, but we're always striving for that ideal, whether we actually reach it or not. And I cannot tell you how important it is to see groups of young students ready to take up that banner and that effort. So part of what I want to say is, of course, welcome to ACJS and Philadelphia and to Alpha Phi Sigma. Andy tells me that this is the 50th anniversary of the connection between ACJS and Alpha Phi Sigma, so I'm very excited to end up being president in this special year. And I can tell you that this is going to continue far into the future. ACJS loves having Alpha Phi Sigma here. And there is a little bit of a ulterior motive in that. We're hoping that when you graduate and you pursue your careers, whether it's academia or in practice, you'll come back as ACJS members and present and volunteer and network and collaborate and inspire, and then maybe serve on the board and maybe one day be crazy enough to take up this position. So I see this as a start to a wonderful relationship with all of you, and I can't tell you how excited I am. You are the future, and it's going to be a good one, and may sound a little sappy, but it is truly what I see when I look out here and I talk to all of you. So welcome. Have an absolutely wonderful conference. If you are registered as well with ACJS, come join us for all of our activities and panels when you can. And I look forward to getting to know all of you over the next years. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mizrahi. And a token of our appreciation for those inspiring remarks and for your service with ACJS, you get the coveted Alpha Phi Sigma Philadelphia t-shirt. Good job. Thank you very much. Of course. All right, And before I vacate the stage, one last reminder, if you haven't signed in for this opening ceremony, students on the right, any advisors on the left, that'll get your chapter registered for this event. Part of that has to do with the waiver, potential waiver of annual dues if you come to enough events. And then, of course, we will have a drawing at the end of this session as well for both advisors and for students. And we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. But for now, I'm going to turn it back over to Shanika.
Now, as we begin, I would like to go ahead and introduce you to our Madam Vice President, Alpha Ed.D. Hello. Hello. Hi. Okay. Let me just go inside. Good afternoon, everybody. Dr. Danielle Thomas serves as a Victim Service Coordinator at the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention and Policy, where she supports statewide victim service initiatives and ongoing development of Maryland's sexual assault and human trafficking response. She began her work in this field as the regional navigator for the Lower Eastern Shore, building a multidisciplinary program serving Maryland's Lower Shore. In her current role, Dr. Danielle serves closely with the regional navigators, state agencies, and community partners to strengthen collaboration, align policy and practice, and support survivor-centered systems for care across jurisdictions. Dr. Danielle holds a Doctorate of Education from Liberty University. Her research focused on lived experience and advocate responding to child trafficking in rural and non-metropolitan communities, which continues to inform her trauma response, evidence-informed approach to system-level work. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Danielle Thomas.
I was going to say good morning, but I guess it's good afternoon after lunch. I'm a walker and a talker, so you are really excited about it. Come down there. Cool. Sweet. What did you eat for lunch?
Shake Shack.
Shake Shack with the fries or something. Something else that's like specific to Philly. Cheesesteak. I feel like that's solid. Yeah. I am definitely not from Pennsylvania or Philadelphia. Ironically, I live in Delaware, so you're going to get like a whole mixture of East Coast states. My name is Dr. Danielle Thomas. I brought with me my colleague, Jasmine Mayo, who is a social worker who works in Maryland as our regional navigator for a handful of jurisdictions that we have. We're going to get into what Maryland's regional navigator response is, but I know your conference theme this week is what? Trafficking. Yeah, I guess I'll stop. Okay, I have two major announcements before I continue. One, I really like engagement, and because my degree is in education, I'm very much like, so I will call you out, not in like a way that is going to make you feel bad about yourself, but we're here to have a conversation, right? And I think that that's the way that we truly take away some feedback from what we're going to talk about today. Trafficking is a hot topic keyword, right? And we're going to get into some things that are triggering. You will not offend me or Jasmine if you're like, this isn't for me, and you leave. You will not offend us at all. The biggest thing that we want you to do is take care of yourselves, especially as we start talking about trafficking, and then you guys have like this kind of topic for the next few days, right? And we can tell you from working in this field like that is heavy, so definitely take care of yourself. Okay, so full disclosure, this is going to be my first presentation ever using Mentimeter, but if you want to log on to our Mentimeter, that would be super great. And you know what? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and we're just going to roll with the flow today. Our objectives for today, we're going to learn about early identification for specifically youth, young adults, myself and differentiate between delinquency and exploitation. And we'll have lots of conversations about this throughout this, the next hour or so, but trafficking lives in that gray area, right? And so we'll get into that as well within our case study. We're going to examine the structure and the function of the statewide model. Why did Maryland create a statewide model for trafficking? Was it even a problem in the first place? And now kind of what are we seeing and what are the trends? Everybody on the code, we need it again. Cool. My other main thing, because I told you I was going to tell you two things. I think I told you one. My other main thing, again, I'm just going to reiterate it, is the trigger warning, okay? If you need to leave, leave. You will not offend us at all. But let's get into, I want to kind of paint a picture for you before we go any further. So if you want to close your eyes, you don't have to. Sometimes it's weird, right? But I'm going to share with you a story. Not everything I say is hypothetical or alleged, right? But sharing with you a story. Let's say it's like 7:14 in the morning, and a mother is sitting in her car outside an elementary school. She has coffee, is getting cold in a cup holder, and her daughter's in the passenger seat. She's 10 years old. Her backpack's too big for her shoulders. She's scrolling on her phone. They argue about nothing important, a hoodie, and missing homework sheet, whether she can have Takis in her lunch. And her mom sighs, make good choices today. And you know, when you say that, sometimes as a parent, she didn't mean it as a warning. She meant it in a way that parents do, as a ritual. So the bell rings, the girl hops out, shuts the car door, and disappears into a building filled with lockers, math homework, spelling tests, multiplication charts. Nothing about the morning feels different. Sorry. Nothing about the morning feels different. She walks into her classroom, she sits down, she pulls out her phone, and she sends a video to every device in that school. Not to one friend, not by accident, but to everyone through AirDrop. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Phones go off throughout the classroom. Laughter and gasps, teachers yelling, put your phones away. By lunchtime, the principal's office is flooded. Child Protective Services has been called. And by the end of the day, law enforcement is also involved. Now that 10-year-old girl has a file. Now here's what I didn't tell you about that video. That video she sent was of her cousin, her 10-year-old cousin, taking a shower, recorded without her 10-year-old cousin's consent. Now before we go any further, just stop, let's take an inventory, like, let's feel it out. How do you feel? Do you have anger, concern, like WTF? I can't cuss, but like, what's WTF? Are you labeling her as a predator? She's weird. I like that answer. A delinquent, is she a problem child? Because honestly, what you label her as now is going to determine what happens next. So you just met victim A, and 2 years later, this same girl will exchange sex for alcohol. At 13 years old, she'll post her location online for adult men to find her. At 15, she'll trade sex for dipping sauce because she ran out when she was eating chicken nuggets and french fries. And so I'll ask you again, when did she become a victim? Oh, the little girl who took the video is victim A. Okay. So victim A recorded her cousin in the shower, went to school. The cousin, yeah, we're talking about the girl who sent the video. Yes. This is her background, right? History of DSS involvement, dad's not around, low SDS. Her older brother has a mental illness, now risky behaviors, all kind of center around like sex abuse, right? Because her cousin isn't the only one that she recorded, she also recorded her brother masturbating. Not known to him, it was just found on her phone. Okay. This is the gray area. This is the start of the gray area. So let me, Jasmine's going to switch it over to Mentee. With that, now remember, victim A is the person who reported. Victim A is the perpetrator in that story. We'll just say it that way, okay? Risk factors and red flags that you just automatically come to mind with that story.
Danielle, to be correct, this is when they're using the Mentimeter, correct?
Yes.
All right. So go ahead and pull out your phones, and as we see, some things are coming in, so this is perfect. Thank you all for your engagement.
As we're having some things come in, raise your hand if you've ever, just raise your hand for fun. Raise your hand if you have ever read, heard, or are familiar with the ACE study. Adverse childhood experiences. Yeah, honestly, like one of the best TED Talks ever, I think. It's a great TED Talk. But what is the ACE study? Someone just like real brief tell me. No one? Go ahead, yeah.
It's like a record of adverse childhood events, right?
Give me 1 second. I want to give you the mic if that's okay.
It's adverse childhood events, and the more that you have, the greater at risk you are to involve yourself in risky behaviors later in life. And
Absolutely.
Risk of victimization and risk of offending.
Absolutely, and that study also showed a correlation with long-term health challenges, right? But I think that's a blueprint for being trafficked. That is the list of vulnerabilities that you just kind of need to go down and check off the list, right? And then a trafficker, or somebody who is going to capitalize on that victimization, can just be like, yep. I'm going to pass it over to Jasmine, but we're going to pause. Our case study with victim A is going to last this entire presentation, okay? So we're going to keep coming back to victim A, but that's our baseline for victim A. Trust me, it gets a lot crazier. But we're going to stop right there, and I'm going to pass it over to Jasmine. We're going to get a little bit more into the specifics of human trafficking.
All right. So this is when I wake you up just a little bit, okay? As Danielle stated, she's a walker. I'm a walker too. I'm going to try to stay in place, but this is where I need a little bit more of your engagement. We're talking about human trafficking today, and you're going to be talking about it a little bit more all through this week. But I want to hear from you. So what is human trafficking? Does anyone know? Here we go.
So human trafficking, that's where you're moving one person from one place to another. So like, a good example of that would be like someone bringing in immigrants from like Mexico, to put them in a truck, then ship them off to Florida. So you got something.
Of course. So I think that's a great start, because in 2000, the early 2000s, that was kind of the definition. But that's more smuggling. We're talking about an offense against people. So I think that's a great start. I'm going to come over here if that's okay. I told you I like to walk. But tell me, what do you think human trafficking is?
A lot of what we see now is a lot of like sexual trafficking and also labor trafficking of people.
So you broke it down. Yes, I hear another hand over here.
So using force, fraud, or coercion to make money off of someone else's body, or like sex trafficking or labor trafficking.
So we're getting closer and closer and closer. I see another hand over here, and then I'm going to pass it to Danielle if that's okay. I told her I walk around a lot. I'm so sorry. I know I have the mic, so it carries. Is that a hand over there? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say it's it's a situation that people can't escape from, where they're forced to like work or operate in one way or another, and they're being forced to.
And I did see a hand over here. Does someone else want to hear me?
Mine is sort of similar to hers. Is when you take someone without their consent and force them to partake in sexual acts or labor and things of that nature.
Another hand. Okay, yes.
I believe human trafficking is relative because everybody has already stated. We have organ trafficking, we have labor trafficking, we also have forced labor for indentured servitude, and also we have child trafficking and also sex trafficking. Also within that is also gun trafficking, where they are forcing somebody else to be a drug mule, or also with gun trafficking.
Thank you so much.
you. I have a trick question. If I, you know what, can I borrow this? Is that weird? Okay. If I have, let's pretend this is a little baggie of cocaine, and I'm a gang member, and I'm like, here, Jasmine, here you go. And she buys this little baggie of cocaine, and then where does that little baggie of cocaine go? In her system now, if I say, hey Jasmine, I'm gonna need you to come back to me tonight and give me a quota, and then she goes and does what? And then she's coming back and doing what? So a lot of times within these bigger gang types of like organizations, right, if we're talking about a return on investment, humans have the biggest return on investment.
So I love the fact that we had a lot of engagement. There's a lot of thoughts, and there was no wrong answer. The reason why I wanted to land it here is because we're going to spend a lot of time talking about human trafficking, and I wanted to kind of gauge what your awareness was, as well as your thoughts. I've been working with survivors of human trafficking for almost 4 years, and guess what? I still have to pull up the definition. So I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give it to you in regards to what the federal government of the United States defines what human trafficking is. And I'm going to read it. And then I'm going to make it make a little bit more sense to you, based on how I understand it, okay? So human trafficking, it's the federal definition of human trafficking by the United States comes from the Trafficking and Victims Protection Act. So when you're looking at those little definitions, those little acronyms, what you're going to see is TVPA. And it breaks it down, similar to how we're looking at it. It breaks it down into a category with sex trafficking and what labor trafficking is, just as we had our conversations. And when it breaks it down into regards of sex trafficking and labor trafficking, it says sex trafficking is the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, obtaining, parturiting, I gotta get that word, gotta get it, and the solicitation of a person for the purpose of commercial sex. And the reason why I'm putting more attention on that word is because when I give you more information, you're then gonna say, hold on, but what about this, right? So it talks about the commercialization of sex. The sexual acts in which the act is either induced by force, fraud, or coercion. Here's a little piece where I was telling you you're probably going to have some questions. The other caveat to that is when we're talking about sex trafficking, if the individual that is being sex trafficked is under the age of 18. If they're under the age of 18, force, fraud, and coercion does not need to be present. If you don't have to go there, sorry. Does not need to be present for it to be deemed as human trafficking. Specifically when we're talking about sex trafficking. The other leg in which we were talking about, which is in labor, it goes just as we talked about from our conversation. Laboring is the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining a person for the purpose of labor or service through force, fraud, or coercion. And there's not an age in regards to that. So if you're under the age of 18 and we're looking at labor trafficking, force, fraud, and coercion must be present for it to be determined as labor trafficking. Labor trafficking, sex trafficking, that is a form of human trafficking. Human trafficking is that umbrella term. So I hope that made a little bit more sense to you. I promise I still have to go to this definition. I am not a lawyer, I'm an advocate. So for me, those fine prints does not matter. If I have a survivor that needs services, it's my duty to provide it to them. I'm not looking at force, I'm not looking at coercion, I'm not looking at any of those other things. It's just the services that they need and me provide it to them. So a lot of times, this definition, it means nothing to me. The other part is the most important, it's the person. So I'm going to actually go back if that's okay. Because as we stated before, human trafficking is that umbrella term. Human trafficking, you have that definition. But there's so many other forms of human trafficking, not just sex trafficking and labor trafficking. You have financial benefit trafficking. You have debt bondage or bonded labor. You also have organ trafficking, domestic servitude, involuntary domestic servitude. And the list continues to go on and on and on. The reason why it continues to go on and on is because human traffickers are mass manipulators. And for us within the system, we're kind of a little behind regional navigator within Anne Arundel County and the state of Maryland. We focus on sex trafficking and labor trafficking. This is the definition which I read to you previously. For me, my focus is on child sex trafficking. When I say child, kind of looks like more like a youth, so anyone under the age of 24 would provide services to. The youngest survivor that I provided service to was 18 months, and the oldest survivor that I worked with, although it said 24, I've also worked with 55. And again, my area is sex trafficking, and about 2 years ago, we were able to add labor trafficking to that as well.
Yeah, pause for there, because that's heavy, right? Like, I think Jasmine and I, my youngest girl is 2 years old, and yours was 18 months. So we have served the youngest youth trafficking referrals within the state of Maryland that we are aware of. And to be honest with you, I'm a data nerd, sorry, and the data is very interesting. I worked very heavily in the rural area, which is also a lot where my dissertation research focuses on as well. But what we have found was the data was really interesting. Kids under the age of 5 are being sold by their moms and grandmas, not males, but females, mainly to procure drugs. A lot of it was like heroin, fentanyl kind of things. Above the age of 5 in the rural spaces, they're being used for rent and utilities, and this is where I'm telling, this is a trigger warning, okay? But legitimately, I have worked with a survivor who has told us that her mom forced her down for their landlord to have sex with her so that they could not have to pay rent that month. She ended up being pregnant, by the way. But that's in the rural spaces. If you go into our more populated areas within Maryland, we've found that familial trafficking trend is kind of flipped, where under 5 years old are being sold by dads and uncles, not like it is in the rural spaces. So the data is really interesting and different, but essentially that's exactly what and we'll get into exactly what the Regional Navigator Program is later on. But that is what our advocates are here for throughout the state of Maryland, to be able to provide those services, because we know that trafficking looks different within the regions of Maryland, and how we're able, like, what can we do to be able to kind of tackle those things, especially when it comes to familial trafficking, because that's a whole other ballgame.
Yeah, as Danielle said, it's a very different ballgame. For me, I think my moment of like awareness kind of like opened up when I did come into this field as a victim advocate. But for me, I'm a 2000s teenager. Most of you might have lived in the 2000s as well. But back in those days, it was like Nickelodeon, and I'm not saying this as like trigger warning, but there were like auditions where people, not necessarily Nickelodeon, were having these casting calls or these model calls, where young girls and guys would come out and they will audition to either be picked up or to have modeling gigs. I know you heard about America's Next Top Model. Again, I'm not here to throw those names out there, but what I'm saying is a lot of our survivors or victims that we have came in contact with, at least myself, were exploited through pictures of themselves. Again, I told you, commercial sex under the age of 18 is human trafficking. So I did work with a minor who was taking nude pictures, and they were selling them on the internet. She was aware of that, but she thought that that was her way into the industry. Everyone's doing it. For us, that is human trafficking, that is commercial sex. What are you doing with those pictures? What is the purpose of those things? So I say that in regards to the least minute versus I did have a child being sold for the purpose of sex. I want you to kind of expand your thinking of what human trafficking is. It's not that white van anymore. Am I saying that it's not happening? No, I'm not saying that's not. But that's more of kidnapping and abduction. A lot of the survivors and victims of human trafficking know who their human trafficker is. And they're not calling them human trafficker. They're calling them mom, dad, aunt, uncle, cousin, boyfriend, girlfriend, best friend. I work in Anne Arundel County, and some parts are rural, but there's also an urban community too. I'm from Baltimore City, so I'm very familiar with what the typical human trafficking survivor might look like. But coming to Anne Arundel County and seeing that it was not what I thought, I had to expand my knowledge. To give you a little background too within myself, as Danielle said, she does education. My undergrad was actually in criminal justice, super cute. I also had my certificate in crime scene investigation. So for me, it was kind of like a wild wind. I went to the University of Baltimore, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with Maryland, but if anyone died, and I believe if it's under the age of 55, they all came, no matter where you were in the state of Maryland, they came to Baltimore City for them to go ahead and do their assessments to see why that person died. I had that ability to see those things. So for me, coming into the human trafficking world was very different, right? And then my master's is in social work from Oregon State University. So I stayed in that urban area, right? I said I want to do urban work, so that's where I'm going to be. So going to Ann Arbor was very different. The reason why I wanted to pause here is because then, if you didn't see it earlier, you do have familial trafficking that's up there. I want you to be aware of it. Sometimes human trafficking, when you're looking at familial trafficking, might look like neglect. It might look like abuse. But you also want to open your lens that maybe there might be something else. Maybe you have to do a little bit more digging. Maybe you have to ask those questions of that survivor or that victim, but not the obvious questions. It might be, hey, do you have a hyper-vigilant boyfriend? Do you have a hyper-vigilant parent? Do you have someone who's not allowing you to speak for yourself? How are you getting your nails done? How are you getting your hair done? You're 13. Why do you have a fresh manicure? Not in that obvious way, but just asking. It's very interesting. I don't know anything. Where'd you get your nails done? Who takes you there, right? When I was working with a survivor, they had to have, French manicure on their feet and their fingernails, and their hair had to be straightened, right? Those type of things, asking those questions, making aware. Human trafficking survivors do not look like what you're seeing on TV. A human trafficking survivor could look like me. I could look like a survivor. You could look like a survivor. Survivors have very unique stories. So asking and getting more information, that's what I want you to get from this. And from your whole week that you will be here and learning more. So I hope I was able to write you a little more. So for me, I gave you that definition of human trafficking, but guess what? Again, 4 years, I will not remember that. I remember forced fraud or coercion and all those other words. Okay, cool. I'm not a lawyer, but what do I need to know? Human trafficking is an umbrella term. It starts at the top. Under it, there are people. There are people. They're either being coerced, frauded, or forced fraud or coercion, right? Through the threat of violence. A lot of times people say, well, why didn't the survivor leave? That's kind of like an oxymoron. You're assuming that the survivors are dumb. Don't you think they would have left if they could? A lot of people, when they're in those situations, they have tried multiple times. So asking those questions, well, why didn't they leave? Force, fraud, or coercion. A lot of times it might be their documentation. I'm not talking about individuals that are not citizens of the United States. United States citizens might not have access to their documentations. They might not have their Social Security card. They might not have their ID. They might not have their birth certificate. Why? Guess what? My mom didn't give me mine until I was 18. Right? And that's a normal thing. Like, it's a big deal. It's a big document. But for our survivors, their parents might not ever give it to them. Or their human trafficker, if it's a boyfriend or girlfriend, they might not give it to them. They might have a child where their trafficker is taking them and they only have access to that, right? They might have engaged with the system multiple times and have felt those consequences where they have been failed by the system, right? That failure. But for me, what I want you to get out of it is that human trafficking is the umbrella term, and under its people. What could be the means in which they are experiencing that trafficking? So I hope that helped you in understanding human trafficking. We talked about people being moved. Unfortunately, when we're talking about human trafficking, our survivors, they don't have to be moved. They can stay in their same state. They can stay in their home. They can stay at school. They can live a normal life and experience trafficking. They don't have to move from state to state. So I hope that helped in understanding. I think I'm going to pass this over to Danielle for Trends Within Maryland.
Any thoughts so far, though? I know that's like a lot of like information dump, dramatic information dump. Crazy, yeah.
Everyone's familiar with Google Maps. Have you ever gone on
the globe. Do you think COVID slowed it down? No, they sat back and they adapted and said, oh, no one can move. Okay, we'll go online. So the amount of youth, because remember, under federal definition, if you were under the age of 18 and you exchanged anything sexual for anything of value, what would value be? Throw it at me. Money. What else? Food, games, clothes, drugs, housing, survival sex. If you're under 18 and you engage in survival sex, you are trafficking yourself, right? Under the age of 18 for child trafficking, it doesn't mean that you have to have a pimp. It doesn't mean you have to have somebody who's selling you. And we'll get into it with Victim A in a second, but there are lots of different ways where you can traffic yourself, and COVID really highlighted that. So we have had a significant influx of youth who are trafficking themselves from the safety of their homes. Just because, listen, you want to know how kids are, like, I feel like I'm not old, right? Because you see my gray hairs, like, fly away. But, like, I was not this savvy when I was bad. Like, I was not like this. We have supported girls who will literally send a nude and then be like, hey, this is my Chipotle order, this is my address, so send that shit on DoorDash. So, like, that's just the way it is, right? So they facilitate their trafficking is a learned survival mechanism, right? Because it's not just, okay, well, we have sex so that I can have a place to stay. It's like, oh, wait, you'll give me something for that? Okay, well, I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and all I have to do is have sex with you? So in Maryland, that's a lot of what, they told me how to laser talk. That's a lot of what we're seeing is the rise of the online space. Now, when you add in the AI component, so I have 2 kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I am working especially with Homeland Security, and they're like, don't ever post your kids like face on. And I'm like, why? That sounds kind of weird, right? Like, no, even if your profile is like private, don't post your kids face on because the AI can take that picture. And now we have predators who are going onto my Facebook, grabbing an image of my 5-year-old, putting it into a program and creating their own porn. Doesn't necessarily, like, that's not solidified, like, this is child sex trafficking, but, like, do you see where these things can go? Like, there's lots of weird little scary, like, intersections on that, and we're seeing a lot of that within Maryland. ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children. Has anybody heard of nihilism, or 764? For real? Like, have you heard of it? Isn't it wild? Wild.
Could you tell us more about that?
I wish that I could, but essentially it's like kids online who are really like daring essentially other kids to do bad things, like go kill your dog, like they will, or go sexually abuse your sister, and then they will. So it's, I think Momo was a part of it too. So like we have all experienced this nihilism situation, but it is now it has more of a like satanic cult. It's very strange. But that is what is happening on the internet right now, so I think that that is an additional rise of what's going to be integrated within this online space of child trafficking, but definitely something you guys should look into because it's pretty interesting. Maryland specifically, I know we have a friend right here who lives in Howard County. Anyone else familiar with Maryland? You said you guys are from Maryland. Are you? Yes. Oh, yes. Not super far right. So Maryland is an interesting place, right? Like we kind of have everything. You can go west and we have lots of mountains. You can go east and you're smack dab in Ocean City. Also don't talk. You can talk to me later on about human trafficking in Ocean City and I'll tell you all the things. But Maryland is really quick to be in a different state really quickly. Whenever I worked on the Eastern Shore, so I was at Wycomico in Worcester County, Maryland, and so we're connected back up to Virginia and Delaware, and I can go. Where's my compass? I can go west and go across the bridge, and then I can get on a major highway and be somewhere else, right? So Maryland is a very transient area. And we have a lot of, oh my gosh, you're gonna love this. We have a lot of, like, things that you would want, attractions that you would want to come to. Has anyone been to the Sphere in Vegas? Like you have for real? Like the Sphere, like you went and you like, was it cool? Or was it like totally lame? Was it lame? Okay, because Maryland's getting one. Maryland's getting a Sphere. It's going to go, it's in PG County, it's going to be near DC, but apparently we're getting the second Sphere. And so I'm like trying to figure out if it's like cool or not, but I'm like, she says it's not cool. Well, I feel like it's going to be an additional attraction to bring people here, right? Well, here as in Maryland. So casinos and sporting events also. Why would you say that that would be up there? Potentially, yeah. Anywhere that there is an exchange of money, there's an opportunity for trafficking to happen. And then when you put in big top dollar things like sporting events, Super Bowl is a big one, does it mean that that location of where the Super Bowl is happening, that spot has an increase of human trafficking? It's across the nation that has an increase of human trafficking on Super Bowl days, because everybody wants to bargain and spend money, right?
I also want to add, Danielle, back here, is that why Maryland also, now I have not checked this year, but Maryland was in the top 5 for the richest states in the state of Maryland, well, the state of the United States. So that is another thing. So it's very wealthy. It's lots of different geography things that you could do, but it's also where a lot of rich individuals currently reside. So you got those Montgomery County, PG County, Baltimore City, surprisingly.
What do rich people have besides money, literally? Like if I was rich and I just wanted to like work all day and or not work all day and I just wanted to have children, what do I typically have? An au pair, right? How do you say it? I don't know how to say it. I just say it with confidence. How do you say it? Au pair?
Au pair?
Au pair? How?
It's like a nanny.
She said dated. Au pairs, like a live-in nanny, right? So some gray area there.
Domestic servitude.
Domestic servitude.
And Danielle, could you give us a little bit more insight in regards to the referral trends? What does ICAC stand for?
Yeah, so I think I went over that earlier, but I think I just went really fast. ICAC, ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children. And then CSAM. Please tell me you know what CSAM is. Thank you. This is such a great audience. It's normally when I present to other people, like, not throwing them under the bus, but law enforcement, they're like, you mean child prostitution? I don't know if I do mean that, actually.
And CSAM, please.
Child sexual abuse material. Yep. Okay, so back to victim A. Of course. Okay, so the first time we met victim A, that was the first time that she was referred to DSS. Okay? Then, within the county, we have established a regional navigator program, and just baseline for a regional navigator program is that regional navigator is responsible for direct victim services for child sex trafficking victims and child labor trafficking victims within their jurisdiction, okay? So, this is my first encounter with victim A. She's 12 years old when I meet her. Again, history of DSS involvement, dad's not around, low SES, brother who has a mental illness, so she has some friends. And she goes to their house Friday evening, Saturday, and parties with her friends. Now, this specific friend lives with his dad. It's only 2 homes. So when she and her friends come over to party with him, granted, again, 12, to party with her friend, her dad is there, also partying with them, and bringing his friends. So what ended up happening was, they provided this victim A and her friends a bunch of drugs and alcohol, and they would have sex with them, right? So after this current encounter with our child advocacy center, they had 2 adult males through phone dumps that were identified in a testimony of like, hey, now you're being charged, okay? So first encounter with this victim, remember we had our history with her, this is my first encounter with her, this is what I want to know. And Jasmine's going to switch it for us real quick. And again, if Minty isn't working, feel free to just shout it out. But my question for you, how concerned are you so far, so victim A? I'm like slightly concerned or just like, because now she's starting to, I mean, we've all heard the term, right? Frequent flyer. She's starting to come around. Yeah.
What's frequent flyer stands for?
Somebody here has got something. Oh, yeah.
Hold on, can you give her the mic? I'm sorry. Because I think this is good.
A frequent flyer is someone who has like a lot of incidents where they get involved with like the hospitals or police or social workers and things of that nature.
For sure. So somebody that we're going to see kind of frequently, and even though you give them the resources, and then it's like, yeah, do good, and then like 2 weeks later, it's like, oh, you're back to the same resource, it's fine. But let's be real, that's what trafficking is. It's complex. A lot of, and we know through research that are not just youth victims, but in general, human trafficking victims are going to stay in the life an average of 7 times. They're going to attempt to leave an average of 7 times before they completely remove themselves from the life. We don't do, I don't like the word rescue. Can anyone explain why? Go ahead. Right, because where's the autonomy, right? And if we're talking about human trafficking victims that have been all day long been forced to, you have to make your quota before you eat. Most of the time you're groomed and exploited through some form of like drug dependency, so you have to make your quota before you do this. And that choice is really important, right? Giving them back the choice. I love this. I love that okay, so we're at the point where we're just like, we're a little concerned with her. She's definitely doing some risky behaviors, specifically within this field of sexual assault and exploitation and trafficking. Can someone, I'll pick on the big group. Anyone who answered child sex abuse victim, can you explain your answer?
And don't be scared either. It's okay.
The reason I chose child sex abuse victim is because she's demonstrating this abnormal knowledge of sex for prepubescent age, and she's interacting in sexual ways with adult men. So we know for a fact that she has experience outside of what's normal, naturally. Anyone else?
Because in a sense, curiosity is a common thing for children when they learn more about it, but actively going out of the way to commit substance, you're a victim in substance. And I feel the adults, they know that it's wrong, and we think it's okay. The kids think it's okay, and they're getting something out of it. So it's like the adults are sexually abused. Yeah, that makes sense.
Raise your hand if you wear glasses. Actually, I just have 2 scratches on, like 1 scratch on each lens, and I can tell you that I'm really upset about it. But it reminds me that I have to go back and get my eyes checked, right? And I hate that. It's not the most fun experience, right? Really, doing anything as an adult, just not the most fun experience. Like no one has time for it. But one of the things they do when you get your eyes checked, they like put you behind the little thing, right? And you're just like. And you're just looking, and then they're like, okay, and they just keep adding stuff, right? And sometimes, it's not like we can't see the letters, just a little blurry. And then you add that extra lens on, and it's like, whoa, hold on, I can see that. That's how I feel about child sex trafficking within the field of child sex abuse, because child sex trafficking is child sex abuse, but not enough. We're not doing the little bit, oh wait, there's just a little bit more. I can see a little bit clearer. So that's something that I want to definitely encourage you guys with, not just within the trafficking world, but there's so many things that are complex and nuanced, right? And sometimes, especially in this field of criminal justice and victim services, not one person can do everything. And we have our lanes, or like, that's my favorite word, this is my silo, like, okay. But should all be working on the same farm together, right? So we can be in our silos, but how can I also kind of like, I don't know, be able to see a little bit clearer so that I'm not blinded by my own silo? Does that make sense?
And I'm getting ready to transition, but I wanted to pause here because I love the fact that, and I'm not saying the tier, but in regards to the majority, you have 48. So for me, I look at that as, hold on, DSS is getting involved. Department of Social Services is who we're making these referrals to. These are the individuals that should be specialized to possibly have more of a oversight or be able to identify it. Child sex trafficking does fall under that agency to provide that assistance under child maltreatment, specifically child sex trafficking or child sexual abuse, sorry about that. So I love that, right? For us, as Danielle was saying, that little lens of that chick, that for DSS, that should come from them. We are mandated reporters. We understand what a mandated reporter is. If this was to come to us, if we were a neighbor, or say your child went to that party, or you were a counselor, or maybe you were the neighbor that saw this, you would have that red flag of, okay, let me go ahead and make this call because there's a specialized unit who should be knowledgeable of what's going on to do that investigation. So when I say 48, I see that woo-hoo. When I see that 10, I'm like, yes, you're getting it. When I see that 9, I say yes, yes, yes. But I also see that 1, there is some concern, and there's that more wanting more information, right? We don't know all the details, but we want to know what's going on. So I wanted to kind of pause here to kind of speak on that. This is very impactful.
Any other thoughts, questions while we transition? Cool. We talked about a white van earlier. Has anyone seen this video? Don't spoil it. It's one of my favorites. If the sound doesn't work, it's fine. We don't need sound for it. It's a quick video, but I think that it's really impactful to kind of showcase how this white van has really kind of transformed within our current culture.
Especially with COVID, right? Especially with COVID.
Especially with COVID. I promise the awkward silence that we ever seen is only going to Raise your hand if you have if you know anyone who plays Roblox. Raise your hand if you know anyone who has a Nintendo Switch. Anyone you know who plays Xbox or other gaming systems?
Raise your hand if you know someone under the age of 18 that has a laptop, a cell phone.
What do you think when you see that?
I was gonna say that they're still being watched on their screens, so they're doing on their phones. And I think it's hard to watch out for because those predators can seem like other children their age or friends that like they're coerced and believe that they can trust them.
And then with nihilism, like it could be a friend. You
now that they are able to come into the privacy of your own home. So they don't have to wait until you exit your home or exit a building or try to stalk you within the public. Now they can actually enter into your own home with your privacy because you're constantly online.
Now take that and add a trafficking lens for child sex trafficking, right? Go ahead.
It's like how they have games with chat, voice chat, chat boxes, messaging. Like that's a common thing for games now, and people can use that as a who's asking, are your parents around? If not, say, here's my number, take my number, any messaging form to they can get things from you.
I also want to share something too. And when we can get to the hand, I'm telling you, I'm showing my age. But when I was little, I used to be on those chats too. And the first thing you say was ASL, age, sex, location. I'm like, yeah, sure. Age, 18. I was probably 12. Sex, female. Location, you ain't getting my location. I'm in California, right? No face, no trace. That was my era. But I also had that knowledge, right? And I'm sharing this because during my time, it wasn't, a lot of times we say, well, back in my day, this was not happening. It was. It's a little bit more strategic now. It was happening. I'm 12 years old, age, sex, location. IMVU was a thing. Trust me, I wanted to design all those clothes. I was talking to people, right? But I had that knowledge where my mom was like, can't nobody know where we live. Your friends can't be in our house. So I'm not saying, what I'm sharing is that this is not something that's new. It's not newfounded. But what it's becoming is more common, right? In those chat logs, they probably weren't checking for an IP address. They weren't getting my location, right? I was too scared of my mom. Truly, I was. But the reason why I'm sharing this is because we want to share that it is the social media as well as new forms of games with Instagram. I believe this is an Instagram chat. I'm sure if you have Instagram, there has been some creep in your inbox talking about someone can be your sugar daddy. You can be my sugar baby. I see some head nods, right?
So I do I started this program with our local child advocacy center because we were identifying that there was a significant increase of like online situations that were coming through the child advocacy center, and we all kind of stepped back and we were like, well, that's sketchy, what can we do about it? And then we were all like, well, we're kind of old and don't know any of the apps they're using, so let's go to the students. So we went to the criminal justice students of our local Worcester Tech High School, and they were our interns. And they created some peer-to-peer education that's been like super wonderful, super awesome. I can talk all day about that another time. But in their presentations, they added their own screenshots. So these are seniors in high school that went to their middle schools and our middle school and high schools throughout the county to share the screenshots that they had. Our intern last year, we had one male, praise the Lord, because it was so nice to have a different perspective. This is what he shared with us. And somebody sent him this on his Xbox. Xbox checker, want to buy it at this price, and then he's like, no gamer score, no friends, no followers, like, sketchy, right? Then, lots of our girls, have you been spoiled before? Okay. Also had an intern one time that was like, yeah, I responded to them, I need to get my nails done. I was like, I think you're missing the point. You should scale it back. Hi, beautiful, you need a sugar daddy to pamper you and support you financially. Also go shopping and buy groceries. To be honest, if somebody was like, hey, I'll buy your groceries this week, what are we talking? Because I would like to have this conversation. Groceries are expensive. But now imagine you were a college student. So you don't have to imagine, right? But let's say you lose your sports scholarship. Now what? Right? So sometimes it's not all the time that when these sketchy things are coming through the phones and apps and chats. Oh, now again, a lot within that like third-party, like apps that you don't realize have third-party chats. Like I literally had a girl get recruited on a Nintendo DS, and I was like, I don't understand how that happens. Can you help me figure that one out? But Roblox, or Roblox, one of the biggest ways young men and our boys specifically within Maryland, that we know of, are being trafficked. Because you need Robux. It's important. But Robux is also what? It's an item of value. And we talked about those items of value earlier, and yeah, all of those are items of value, but those are our perspectives of items of value. But if you put yourself in the position of that youth or that young adult who is exploiting themselves, what items of value are they looking for, right? Okay. Quickly, statewide model in Maryland. This is one of the reasons what we determined that there is a need for a statewide model for the Regional Navigator Program. And really it comes down to child sex trafficking in Maryland. There was University of Maryland did a study from June of 2013 to December of 2024 and identified 368 youth trafficking victims that were reported to CPS within that time frame. And then they broke it down. Was that youth involved with child welfare before their first human trafficking report? 75.8%. And then 12 months before their first report, 57, but then actively involved with child welfare at the time of their first human trafficking report, 44.8% of youth, right? That's pretty significant. And being able to specifically tackle that area of trafficking is really important to Maryland. And I think Jasmine talked about it earlier, the Safe Harbor law, Safe Harbor program. It took Maryland 7 years to pass a Safe Harbor program, basically identifying that anybody under the age of 18 who is selling themselves cannot be charged for prostitution. 7 years to pass that, was a little bit of a struggle, but okay. Then we also had another University of Maryland study that studied specifically labor trafficking between those years 2019 to 2023, and found that 21% of the labor trafficking that they had identified in Maryland was child labor trafficking. Tell me one thing with passing of, well, Maryland, we have, cannabis is legalized in Maryland, okay? This ties in, I promise.
It is decriminalized in Maryland.
Thank you. You can listen, I'm not a lawyer. One of the things with child labor trafficking is forced criminality. Can anyone give me some examples of forced criminality? Go ahead, please.
Oh yeah, would that be like a parent forcing their child to sell drugs for them?
Forcing you to sell drugs.
It's starting to sound really easy though, like getting a toddler to put something in his pocket or in their diary or up their shirt and teaching them how to steal.
Yep, go ahead.
Or even like having a child go to like the liquor store for the corner store to grab like cigarettes or grass or
what about breaking into cars? It's pretty big within our capital regions of breaking and entering into cars, taking things off cars, those kind of things. So if you're a youth and you do it, then you don't get as much trouble, right? So child labor trafficking and the forced criminality within the youth system has also kind of increased our referrals. So when we look back at Maryland and said, like, okay, this is a problem, let's put something forward, it was the Child Sex Trafficking Screening and Services Act of 2019 that established a regional navigator like Jasmine to be placed in every single county throughout the state of Maryland to be that pinpoint person for the direct services for those youth. In addition to that, also providing the education and then being able to capture the data so we have a little bit more of an understanding of what's going on within Maryland specific to child trafficking. Okay, are we ready for Victim A again?
And Victim A, can you go back? This is the one in the very beginning that was airdropping the pictures within the shower, that had pictures of her brother masturbating.
It was a video.
At a party.
It was a video, yeah.
Okay, sorry, not video.
It's big in the videos, I don't understand. Okay. She gets online They found us in one of our phone books, and they were like, Danielle. Like, I don't think she has autonomy. She was posting online, like marketing herself and saying, hey, I'm gonna be at this park. Come have sex with me. And she got responses from, now granted, I'm on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. She got responses from New York, Delaware, New Jersey, Virginia, DC, and she had people come meet her at the park so she could have sex with them. She's 13, by the way. Okay, let's pause there because she still has 2 adult men that are in jail from past encounters, right? Let's go back to Mentimeter. You tell me how concerned you are so far. Of all the knowledge that you know. And while we're doing that, throw out at me some ideas of some resources that would possibly benefit this child.
And I can come around with my 2 a.m. So throw around some resources, Paracon. Because remember, we're talking that frequent fire.
I would definitely say some type of mentorship with the older woman so she can get some type of understanding of self-worth and things of that nature.
I love my answer, and it's going to come back around, I promise.
Anyone else? Here we go. I'd say probably some practical resources to maybe food services, economic support, because clearly if she's willing to sell herself for those things, she probably needs them and can't get them from anywhere else.
So of that story,
Danielle, I have one more hand.
go ahead, sorry.
Maybe use educational services that help with intervention in these at-risk youth, so that they can help them get back on the right track to finish their education and do better.
So while this is going on, she was already connected to our regional navigator program for about a year, receiving specific mentorship, long-term case management and advocacy, wraparound services, and then she kept doing things like this. And then they would have conversations with her mom, and what do you think her mom would say? Say it again. Brushing it off. No, it was even stranger because it was almost like acting. You know what I mean? To make me sit back and be like, who is benefiting from the money that's coming into the household from some of the things that she was doing?
I would say one of the things that she could, like, it wouldn't be helping her, but actually see what's going on and actually having women who've been in the same situation as her, or seeing, like, people who are so-called currently prostituting themselves out, showing them, like, if you continue this route, here's how you're going to end up. If you want to keep living like this, you're going to end up like this.
So she did have some goals. She did have some goals because we had been with her for a while, but we also had connected her to trauma therapy, free trauma therapy specializing with a therapist that specialized in human trafficking, and you know who wouldn't take her? Her mom wouldn't take her to therapy.
Well, you technically was on it at that point.
I know, yeah. Okay, so regional navigator program, and again, just for this foundation, Maryland is one of the very few states that have a regional navigator program. Minnesota has one, another, I think Michigan, I feel like it's all the M words. Maryland has one, and Texas has their own kind of thing. I think California might have something similar. Florida has something similar, but it's not necessarily called the same thing. But essentially, it is requiring law enforcement and Department of Social Services to refer a regional navigator, to refer any youth who is confirmed or suspected of trafficking to a regional navigator. And again, these youth are not going to be like, I'm being sex trafficked. It is me, I know all this terminology, and now I would like an advocate to be able to help me with this. So a lot of it is working with community partners to be able to put some of those puzzle pieces back together to be like, oh, maybe this is exploitation, human trafficking, meets the requirements of the suspected and at-risk victimization to be able to refer to a regional navigator. I can tell you with Worcester, Wycomico, and Somerset County, Maryland, which is like lower Eastern Shore, Maryland. When I started their regional navigator program down there, we had no referrals because trafficking doesn't happen down there. When I left before I came to the governor's office, we were receiving an average of 3 referrals a week. And when I was there, we specifically had 199 referrals to the navigator program. Because it is very rampant. It is that rampant within the rural areas, specifically based on, a lot of it based on that online space, and it is very rampant everywhere.
So I want to connect some dots because I'm a person where I'm like watching a sequel of like a movie, and I have to watch like what happened before, especially if it took me a second. So I wanted to kind of stop here to gather our thoughts and to make the connection. Again, going back to that definition of human trafficking, for us, we're talking about those kids. So if you're under the age of 18 and you are engaged in commercial sex, either by self or by a human trafficker that is deemed human trafficking, right? The state of Maryland wants to do a deep dive because what they were seeing is that we have this federal definition. How are our children still being arrested for prostitution? Do we get that? Like the children at that time before Safe Harbor passed and before the Child Sex Screening Act came about, our children were being arrested and charged for prostitution. A child cannot be charged with an adult crime of prostitution because of that federal definition. Does that make sense? We're good on that? So what they did was they wanted to take a step further and they say, hold on, well, who should be responsible and what are some additional services? That enacted, well, it took some time, but it enacted the Child Sex Trafficking Screening and Service Act. Enacted my job. Hey, Anne Arundel is looking for a regional navigator. Hey, are you interested? That's that job ad within every county that is receiving government funding, and I'll go more into detail of that. We need a regional navigator. We have these children that are being charged with sex trafficking, with their own victimization and being charged with prostitution and some other offenses that kind of meet that threshold. We're not going to charge them, but law enforcement and Department of Social Services need to refer to a program. And that was the regional navigator program. It was mandating the law enforcement and the Department of Social Services to contact a regional navigator within their jurisdiction or the jurisdiction in which that child lives in. In addition, it also added a couple years later, it also allowed child labor trafficking as a form of child abuse. I believe that was 2 years ago within Maryland. And then what the components are supposed to do is supposed to provide long-term coordination, care, management, and advocacy. That's the regional navigator. As we were talking and saying, well, what are some services that this child could benefit from? That is what the regional navigator program is looked to do, right? The regional navigator program should be connecting with those organizations, those mentor programs. They should be doing full assessments to say, hey, does this family need food? Do they need housing? Do they need clothing? What in the state of Maryland is getting grant funding to provide these services that this child and this family as a unit can benefit from? So for us, the Regional Navigator Program, it has 3 components. So the government, when I say government, the Regional Navigator Program within the state of Maryland receives funding from the Governor's Office for Crime Policy and Procedures. Did I mess one up?
I feel like every time I present, they change their name a lot. They used to be GCAP. Just like GoCap.
GoCap, there we go. It's always that Y and that B that messed me up, and now we don't have that with GoCap. So basically, they will create like a notification they have funding, and within that Regional Navigator Program, they are able to get funding for their program. But in order to get that funding, they have to provide 3 different services or components, right? And for us, we look at it as like pillars. So the very first pillar is data collection, right? Because when we come to these type of conferences or seminars, or we're talking to people, or even when the governor's office is reporting to the governor or anyone, the state's general office of the Department of Social Services, they need to see that things are changing, or that you're actually getting this funding and it's going to the survivors. So each Regional Navigator Program has to do data collection.
The other part is that they have to do direct services, and so that's that one-on-one working with that survivor. It's not just like, okay, we got this referral, they said they need this, and we're just gonna give it to them. Or maybe we might ignore it. No, they work hand in hand with that survivor. As I told you, my youngest client was 18 months. How do I work with that client? I gotta work with the family too, in regards to that. It's very holistic in that approach. So you must work with the survivor, providing direct services and meeting some of the services that the client might have. I promise I'm going to go into a deeper dive. I'm just giving you the pillars now. The other component is early intervention or outreach. How does this look? This is very different for every county or jurisdiction within the state of Maryland. But ideally, it's early intervention. Guess what? We're going to early intervention here. Give you the information about what the Regional Navigator Program is, what human trafficking looks like within our county, and different information. But in addition to speaking to college students, we also connect with the Department of Social Services and facilitate trainings. We also work with the Department of Juvenile Services, Sexual Assault Crisis Programs, any of them that might need services that serves that population, or any information sharing that we have that kind of goes in that early intervention or outreach. So those are the three things that each regional navigator within the state of Maryland must be able to show the governor's office in order to receive funding for the next fiscal year.
I will say that just because, I work for the governor's office, so I will say that our governor's office of crime prevention and policy is on the office of the governor's office in Maryland and has our largest portfolio, and that's where we give all of our victims of crime funding, sexual assault funding, those kind of things. So we have this specific funding source for the Regional Navigator Program within that, but we also have all of our partners within Maryland have the ability to submit a VOCA application or do something else to be able to enhance their Navigator program. A lot of them, since the Navigator programs are only mandated to go up to the age of 24, that's a big age gap, but sometimes you can just submit a VOCA application, get additional funding for that additional age gap, but I just want to put that in there. We are the largest funding source, have the largest portfolio in Maryland.
Right, and you're probably asking yourself, well, if 18 is an adult, why are you going all the way to 24, right? One of the things that we saw was that our children were aging out of foster care at age 21 and still needed additional long-term services thereafter.
Raise your hand if you feel like an adult at 18.
I don't.
Still don't feel like an adult.
I still don't feel like an adult at all. But here, this is why I wrote about my lovely phone. The reason why I wrote about my lovely phone is because I need to give you data, right? You want to know, well, what's the numbers? The numbers or the pie graph that you see right in front of you is from July 2025 to December 2025 in regards to each jurisdiction within the state of Maryland that received referrals from survivors of human trafficking, or in other words, that are regional navigators. And for me, I am in Anne Arundel County, and I only know my numbers, but I love this because I can also see some other numbers. So that big chunk that you see is Lower Shore. That's where Danielle was the regional navigator. I know their number because there's the highest. So that one is 78. But I'm going to go ahead and break it down if you're interested. So if I see your hand, are you interested in knowing the numbers? Okay, so I see some hands. So let's get into it, right? I also want to preface this by letting you know the numbers are only recorded on primary survivors of the crime of human trafficking. So these are the individuals that directly were affected by human trafficking. And in addition to the Regional Navigator Program, we're working on primary survivors. We also can support secondary survivors. Secondary survivors are their parents or their children, right? So they are secondarily impacted by that crime. So I'm going to go ahead and read those numbers if that's okay. Let me just Anne Arundel, I promise I know mine by heart. But Allegheny County, from July 2025 to December 2025, they received 11 referrals. Anne Arundel County, we put this behind the back, we received 20 referrals. Baltimore City received 21. Baltimore County and Howard County, they are together. They are one regional navigator program that serves both counties. They received 27. Carroll County received 18. Cecil County, 9. Charles, Howard, and St. Mary's, they are together. Again, that is one regional navigator for those three counties. They received 10. Frederick County is 17. Garrett County with 5. Lower Shore, 78. I told you I got that one right. Midshore is 11, Montgomery County is 12, and Washington County is 6. You're probably thinking to yourself, okay, that's not that bad of a number, right? But when we're talking about human trafficking, this is a crime that occurs within the dark. When I say that, a lot of survivors might not, one, know that we are survivors, and then the other one is that they're able to access services. So our numbers are individuals that were identified either by law enforcement, our community partners, or the Department of Social Services that make these referrals, or self-referrals. So the numbers do not necessarily justify or show the impact of human trafficking, but I wanted you to see or hear what our numbers do look like. So there is not one county that is not receiving any referrals at this time.
I do want to address the elephant in the room, though, because clearly there's one county that got a lot of referrals compared to the others. And that goes back to that, adding that extra lens on. Majority of those referrals that are coming out of Lower Shore are coming from Child Protective Services and their Child Advocacy Center for at-risk youth. So they have, I did a lot of education for especially their law enforcement partners. So when they have something that they are questioning, or like if it's that weird little mold, they'll send it to the Regional Navigator Program. So a lot of that is that extra, like, hey, we put that extra lens on, and this child sex abuse now can also be considered child sex trafficking, and we're going to go ahead and send a referral. But a lot of that is not necessarily like the reporting discrepancy. It's more so the discrepancy within the locations that are understanding human trafficking. Because we have, you can provide the human trafficking education, but it's up to that individual if they want to receive it, right?
Yeah, and to give you more information, if we're catting back for Anne Arundel County, because I am that county, I'm the person that sees those numbers. Our referrals come from the Department of Social Services and law enforcement, where these are actually confirmed cases of human trafficking. It's not me doing an assessment. These are them telling us that they are confirmed. Yes, we do have at-risk youth. The at-risk youth do come from the Department of Social Services or the hospital when they are seeing them. So we don't have that big caveat of our referrals. Maybe one or two might get self-referrals from a parent that thinks that this is happening. But as I stated, we are mandated recruiters, so we call law enforcement in so they can do the assessments, do forensic interviews, and determine if this individual is at risk. And for us in Anne Arundel County, we do have a specific department that will then go and investigate a little bit more. Might follow for about a month or two, or might scan their phone to see what they might have. That's just our department and how we kind of work a little bit. So again, I'm sharing those numbers and sharing this information because when you're doing your research, you need to question, where are these numbers coming from? And is it benefiting the agency, or are they working with a client? There's always bias when it comes to numbers, and even in regards to people understanding what human trafficking is. So for us within Anne Arundel County, we do have a lot of community partners that might say, hey, this is not happening in Anne Arundel County, it's coming from out of Anne Arundel County. So a lot of our referrals will get shipped to wherever the crime actually happened. So if the individual was in DC when they were actually experiencing human trafficking, they would make that referral to DC where I would get that referral, if that makes sense. Okay. But I wanted to share that information because I want you, when you're reading and you're learning, also question what is the data and do a little bit more investigation for yourself. So that's the data collection. I also want to share, because I talked about there are some counties that have multiple jurisdictions. So there are 14 programs or 14 regional navigators. If you're not familiar with Maryland, there are 23 counties plus Baltimore City. That makes 24 jurisdictions within the state of Maryland. Okay? So there are some agencies that have an overlap. This is the overview of the Regional Navigator Services when I was saying that direct services that the Regional Navigators provide. This is not all encompassed, but this is more so what we consistently see as a consistent thing. The very first thing they're doing is that safety planning. They're working with the child and trying to figure out the treatment plan that might benefit that child or that family. They're not looking in regards to the agency, what the agency might want or need. They're looking at that child and that family for that safety planning. Sometimes it might be in correlation with the Department of Social Services if they are under the age of 18. If they're over the age of 18, it can be with that adult and it's more that safety planning. We do basic living needs. We can now provide some support in regards to shelter. Some agencies do have shelters within their programs, others do not. My agency does not, so what I need to know is I need to know what shelters are available within the state of Maryland, what's available in Virginia, DC, and Delaware, and also network and partner with those agencies so they don't say, hey, your client is not qualified because they're not in this state. So we're making those MOUs to see if we can possibly pay for their stay and they can accept our clients.
I will say though that there is a lot of times where you find a resource, and if that victim doesn't meet those victimization requirements for that specific resource, then they're not welcome. For instance, when I was a navigator, I worked at a place who did have a domestic violence shelter, but none of my human trafficking clients were ever able to go there because they didn't meet the specific requirements needed for that funding source.
Very much, and that has happened to me too. And the other part is that we have to work through being trauma informed for our clients. So us knowing what the requirements are, so if they go into a facility where it is domestic violence, when they're telling their experience, we're letting them know like this was an intimate partner. Those type of conversations.
You can play around with words.
You can, right? And it truly is. If that survivor does not identify that person as a human trafficker, why are you using that language of human trafficker? They're saying this is my boyfriend, this is my girlfriend. And then when you kind of get into that caveat of like, well, this is human trafficking, it wasn't just one boyfriend, it was others. Those are details that matter to you, not the survivor. Why are you asking those questions? Right? So for us, we are advocates in trying to get that information for knowing the different programs so that we can best serve our clients. We do case management. For me, I don't do much case management. We do case care coordination. The reason why we call it that or case management is because we don't want to keep the case because we can't do everything. Our program does not have mentorship. It's my job to coordinate this case to an agency that can provide that level of care for them. But that is what it looks like, and then when you kind of spill it out, it's like, well, you're doing case management. The other thing is that we do trauma counseling and mental health. Again, we can make those referrals. For us, we have to specifically identify that the therapist or the case management services is understanding of human trafficking as well as trauma-informed care. So these are not therapists that are new, kind of vet them a little bit more. We do drug and alcohol treatment, legal services, and advocacy. And then this is the very last one in regards to that pillar. I'm not going to talk much about this because we have been talking all day about the early intervention and outreach. This is just some different things that we do. I promise I messed up this word too. So within the Regional Navigator programs, you are on a multidisciplinary team. That one, got it. And what that means is that it's not just yourself, right? So you're working with law enforcement, you're working with DSS, you're working with therapists, you're working with anyone that can provide services directly to this child or this family, and you work on that multidisciplinary team. For me, I sit in a multidisciplinary team, and when I say me, Anne Arundel County, our multidisciplinary team is within the Child Advocacy Center. When they do a lot of their forensic interviews, we're called in to meet. But we would meet maybe twice a month to review cases and determine when they're telling, hey, what's going on with the cases. They're saying all the things that they're identifying, and then we, as the regional navigators in Anne Arundel County, say, hey, this is kind of that red flag, those indicators that you had. They might be eligible for our services. You might want to do a little deeper dive in regards to their trauma history. So we sit on those. Other regional navigators might have different multidisciplinary teams. The majority of them are all connected to their Child Advocacy Center or the Department of Social Services. We also do sit with law enforcement as well. They're involved in those CAC meetings. We are also connected to task force and collaborations. Every regional navigator knows what task force is within their county. For me, I sit on different and multiple ones. The reason why, going back to that trend, my survivor is not going to stay in Anne Arundel County, right? It takes me about 28 minutes, about 30, depending on what line or how far I am from Anne Arundel to get to Baltimore City. There are some areas, depending on the zip code, you can be really right across the street, like this line behind. You're in Baltimore City, and then you're in Anne Arundel County. So for me, I need to be connected to that task force. We're also connected with Howard County because it's only a 20-minute drive from Anne Arundel County to Howard County. Again, that same line, you could be in Anne Arundel or Howard. There's different collaboratives and we're all connected. We have different meetings and monthly meetings that we attend with all the visual navigators. And then we have the advocacy and collaborating with other victims. This is you, Danielle.
You know, perfect. We're gonna skip through and we're gonna talk about impact in a different way. Okay. Back to Fix May. Yeah, I know, we really hard. This is my third encounter with her. Because when they dumped her phone one time, oh wait, let me tell you the best story. So, we have supported her for a long time, and we had talked about her goals, right? She was like, I want to be a business owner. And I was like, Ed, let's do that. Let's like really support you in the dreams that are like safe and good, right? So like, okay, let's put some eggs into that basket. We work, like Jasmine just said, we work with multidisciplinary teams. So they, not the state tax, not the state dollars for the regional navigator program, but our partners had sent her to the local, well, all these resources. So Salisbury University's entrepreneurial camp. So we're like, oh, you want to like have your own business? You want to make bracelets and beads and stuff? Like, cool, we'll support you in that. She came out with this. She ended up not making beads. She ended up with this price list. I'll go through it. I still don't know if that is one or two, but it's $2 for chest pictures. $3. I feel like when I normally do this, like I actually say the words now, I feel like intimidated. Like, is it okay if I say? Okay, thank you. I won't do the one that I crossed through, I promise. Okay, so tit photo, $2. Now again, tits, we don't know if there's no plural. Ass pic, $3. Fingering video, 10. The word I'm not gonna say, picture, $6. Naked photos for sexy pictures with clothes on, $1. So the CAC calls me and they're like, the detective's like, hey Danielle, we have a Celebrate download and you need to come to my office. I was like, okay, this sounds like a fun day. And then she showed me this and I was like, oh. I guess she really learned a lot about entrepreneurial camp. Like she really tried. Because what she did, right? You know those apps in your phones that are like vaults? Yeah, you know about it because you don't use them, but like other people use them, right? Okay, I got you. But that's what she did. She took her whole menu, she put it in her phone in her vault, and she would just go around living her life, and people would be like, I put it in order, okay, I submitted it, I put it in order, okay. So she'll be like at school, just like fulfilling orders. Yeah, she's not taking new pictures. They're all in the vault in her phone. So I was like, actually, you know, entrepreneurial camp was oddly beneficial but not beneficial, right? Like you're really smart, but like what in the world is this? So I ended up calling a meeting with her mom. And that was a fun meeting. It was honestly one of my favorite meetings I think I've ever had. And I showed her mom this picture, which is like clearly a Celebrate download, okay? Like, I didn't create this. Take a wild guess at what mom's response is. So she said, she got that from Reddit. I said, ma'am. She did. I can tell you right now, those prices, going to be much different. And can we have a conversation with you and your kid about something called, like you said earlier, self-worth. Like, what do you actually believe in yourself, right? Like, granted, no, this is not what we should be encouraging kids to believe in themselves, but this really painted a picture for us to be like, oh wait, we're missing something. And in that conversation with mom started crying and told me, I didn't want to. She said, I went to the hospital and I had a miscarriage and I told the doctors, tie my tubes. And they said, no. She got pregnant again, had victim A. Right? So, still 2 people in jail, and we'll skip this next Mentimeter, we'll skip the next one, we'll just go straight to because this isn't my last encounter with victim A. By the way, I do want to stop though, because this is not the only girl that I've supported in Lower Shore who had price list. It's a lot, because once you know, listen, there was this other girl, she was in DJS, and she would show up to her house. She had we call them I guess it's appropriate since it's March, but we call them Irish Rolex. You know, an ankle monitor, okay? So she would set Ubers up to pick her up from her house, 17, so she could go have sex to get money, and she would come back to her house and stick her tongue out and wave her money in the Ring camera before she would go inside. And they showed it at the court one time, and the judge was like, "Is that you?" She was like, "Yeah." But through the support of the Regional Navigator Program, that was actually a success story. She ended up telling her therapist, "I had sold myself, but I was worth a lot more than that." And she, like, for sure. And she ended up being on the honor society, like, she got honors and did the whole thing and ended up graduating high school. She's great. So, this is not abnormal for a price list, but when we're talking about child sex trafficking, like, yes, there are different types of facilitating child sex trafficking, and this is one of them. And this is why I love talking about victim A, because I think she did almost all of the ways to facilitate child sex trafficking in the short time that I've known her. Okay.
Barbecue sauce.
Barbecue sauce. Listen, do you know anything about it? So this is my last encounter with her. She was being watched by a friend, babysitting, but not really babysitting. The mom was at work, and she was untrustworthy, can't be home by herself. So she was at mom's friend's house, and mom's friend had given her chicken nuggets and french fries for dinner, and she finished her barbecue sauce that she had with her chicken nuggets and french fries. And so she said, "Well, I need more." And they didn't have any, so she walked in his house and said, "I need some barbecue sauce." And he said, "I'll give you some, but you have to have sex with me." And she was like, "Cool, I will." So she had sex with an adult male and received what of value? Barbecue sauce. And when I asked you the question earlier of what is the value, did barbecue sauce or condoms come to your mind? No, right? So then you know what she does? Because she's seasoned. She's well seasoned at this point. She's a frequent flyer. She has sex with this guy, and it's all documented in her phone. She goes to the detective at the CAC and says, "I got raped. Here's my phone. You can dump it."
Oh.
Yeah.
She's 15.
She's 15.
Consent to sex.
But went over and asked somebody for barbecue sauce, knowing what she did, and then comes back and says, "Okay, on to the next one. Now I got 3 inches." So my question to you, she a victim or a perpetrator?
She's a victim, yes. She's a victim.
She doesn't have the mental capacity to consent, no, but are her actions?
No, she knew what she was doing. She's still a victim. Yeah.
Now I will just stop here because this victim A is not, this is not done. This isn't over. She's still actively involved, and I can't tell you how the story ends because it hasn't ended, and it will not be wrapped up pretty, okay?
Is she getting closer to getting away from these things, or?
So, whenever I talk about trafficking, I like to talk about it in a linear scale, right? And so we have like victimization on this side, right? You were a victim, and then the linear scale scoots over, and in the middle you are a survivor. And then all the way over on the other end, we have thriver, okay? But, just like life, no one's going on that scale just straight through, right? So we're getting a little, and then we're coming back, and then we're totally off the scale on this side. And that's kind of how things are with her, because that's just the way that a lot of our trafficking victims are, because of that whole base, going back to the ACE study of like, this is their life, this is their experience, and sometimes it's just how that they have been, learned how to survive.
Is she still 15?
She is 7, about to be 17. Yeah. Okay, so one last Mentimeter for you. And all I want to know is the last one.
The very last one?
Yeah. Now, what are the words that you would use to describe her? I kind of love that, I'm not gonna lie. Oh. Does anyone know what 304 is? Hashtag 304? Yeah. Well, besides the West Virginia area codes, but a lot of our clients have that on the top of their bio and their Instagrams, and that's how you can find them.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Underdeveloped prefrontal, I like that.
You know, Danielle, I'm going to share my success story, if that's okay, while they're all doing this. I was working with a survivor who was 14. She lived in Anne Arundel County, but she was recovered in Baltimore City. How they were able to identify that she was a survivor of human trafficking was that she fell off a stripper pole. And she ended up in a hospital. And so when she was in the hospital, her boyfriend came to visit her, and they found that her boyfriend was 34. Right? And so they did the investigation, and they called in the regional navigator, which is me. I came and talked to her, and she's my favorite client working with ever. She looked at me in my face, and she's like, "You want me to stop doing this? I make $3,000 a night, and all I have to do is talk to someone." So I love that. Again, she was a minor at the time. You're probably thinking, like, red flag, she's working at a strip club. How is she? So for me, I'm asking that question, like, how did you get there? Like, how are you working there? And she told me I'm pretty. They didn't ask for any of my identification. They didn't need my birth certificate. They didn't ask for any of those things. I'm pretty. And in my head, I'm like, okay, you are pretty, yeah, sure. But they still need your documentation, right? So we did an investigation for the strip club, and yes, they were charged, not for human trafficking, but for other things of not having a documentation. The boyfriend was not arrested for human trafficking. The reason why he was not arrested for human trafficking was because he did have documentation from her that she was 18. They did find in her wallet a license that said she was 18. And so they were able, he did get charged with other things, but not human trafficking. He got charged with other things, I want to say that. But I worked with her for 2 years. She wanted to go back to high school. Her mom was not allowing her to go to high school. The reason why her mom said she's not going to allow her to go to high school was because she kept getting calls, and it's not allowing her to work. Like, the school keeps calling. I can't go to work. So for me, she told me, well, since you have all the right answers, you be her mom. And so what we did was we placed her, and when I say we, the Department of Social Services was able to place her with her aunt, where she was able to get services through Job Corps. She did graduate from Job Corps, and she did end up getting her own apartment. Did she work at the strip club thereafter? No, she ended up being a nurse. She was able to get that those services. So that's why I want to say, when we're talking about self-worth, she was receiving $3,000 a night, and I'm looking at her like, okay. We bought her a laptop for her birthday so that she could go to school, and we gave her a Chromebook. She sold it for a birthday outfit. And she told me it was a Mac computer. And so I'm like, yeah, you're right, okay, sure. But I share that because when you were saying low-key funny, I love working with that survivor because she was amazing, and she was intelligent. And it was just that little caveat where she was getting into so many other things because she wanted to go to school. She wanted someone to truly hear her and care for her in that way, and we were able to identify that her aunt was able to provide that service to her.
We're all just human, right? Right? I mean, sometimes, and that's the beauty of this field. Honestly, I've never met there is no better people to work with than the people who are in the anti-trafficking space. because there is no way to do this work without actually having fun while you do it, because it is so hard and it is so complex, and there's a lot of trauma bonding on our end of things for sure, but definitely something that I want to leave you with today is how gray this space is, and how where we are trying to focus in Maryland is in that gray space, is in that space of that prevention space, the messy space, the space with the frequent flyers who are coming back all the time. And to be honest with you, that's one of the ways that I share the Regional Navigator Program with our community partners, like, you're tired, right? And so we specialize in your frequent flyers, send them our way. Because really it's building those relationships and building that rapport and just seeing other people as human beings. And our favorite thing to do whenever we get a new client is to say, what is your favorite snack? Not saying, hey, these are the snacks I have, because we don't know the last time that person was able to eat something that they truly wanted to eat without some form of quota. So being able to give back and provide some autonomy and agency and choice, even in the very smallest ways. That is going to do it for us. Thank you so much for listening to us. With you on some of the things that are happening throughout the anti-trafficking space. Trafficking is a very huge umbrella term, like we have heard, so I know we talked a lot today within the child-specific space of things, but please feel free. You can take a screenshot of this. We would love to have conversations, send us an email, but thank you again so much for having us.
Let's please give these ladies a standing applause for the presentation today. Again, I want to say thank you so much for joining us at this conference. Thank you so much for being able to make it here to give us this very informative information about our theme of the year. We really do appreciate it. I would like to say on behalf of us here at Alpha Phi Sigma, we would like to present to you a token of our appreciation with our official Alpha Phi Sigma commemorative t-shirt. Again, thank you so much to Dr. Danielle Thomas and also Dr. Jackie Mayer.